Hey everyone, today's vid is about when he rejects you but you change. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Let's get going. You had been in love with Bakugou for as long as you can remember. His explosive personality, his fierce determination, and his unwavering confidence had drawn you in from the moment you met him. But despite your best efforts, you could never seem to get through to him. One day, you finally mustered up the courage to confess your feelings to him. Bakugo, I have something I need to tell you. You said, your heart pounding in your chest. What is it? He asked, raising an eyebrow. I. I love you, Bakugo. I have for a long time. You admit it, your cheeks flushing red. Bakugo stared at you for a moment, his expression unreadable. What the hell are you talking about? He finally said, his voice laced with anger. I don't have time for this stupid shit. Go bother someone else. You were crushed. All your hopes and dreams of being with Bakugo had come crashing down in an instant. You turned and ran, tears streaming down your face. But something strange happened. After that day, people started to notice you more. Maybe it was the newfound confidence you had gained from finally confessing your feelings to Bakugo, or maybe it was just a coincidence. But suddenly, you felt like you were the center of attention. Your friends started to treat you differently. They wanted to spend more time with you, to get to know you better, and as you started to spend time with them, you realized that you had been missing out on so much. You started to discover new interests, hobbies, things that you had never even considered before. You joined clubs and groups, and soon enough you had a whole new circle of friends. Meanwhile, Bakugo seemed to be struggling. His temper had gotten worse, and he was constantly lashing out at his classmates. People were starting to avoid him, and he seemed to be getting more and more isolated. You couldn't help but feel a little bit of satisfaction at seeing Bakugo suffer, even though you knew it was wrong. But you also couldn't deny the fact that you had moved on, that you were happier now than you had ever been before. One day, Bakugo approached you in the hallway. Hey, he said, his voice surprisingly gentle. You looked up at him, surprised to see him speaking to you in such a tone. What do you want, Bakugo? You asked, your voice guarded. I. I'm sorry, he said, his eyes flickering with emotion. For the way I treated you before. I was. I was scared, I guess. I didn't know how to handle my feelings. You studied him for a moment, trying to figure out if he was sincere. It's okay, he said, finally. I've moved on, Bakugo. I'm happy now. He nodded, looking down to the ground. I see, he said softly. Well, I'm glad you're doing well. And with that, he turned around and walked away, leaving you alone with your thoughts. As Bakugo walked away, you felt a wave of conflicting emotions wash over you. On one hand, you were proud of yourself for seeming so put together and unfazed by his apology. But on the other hand, you couldn't deny the fact that your heart was still beating wildly in your chest. Despite everything that had happened, you still loved Bakugo. You had tried to move on, to find happiness in other things, but nothing had ever quite measured up to the way you felt when you were around him. You knew it was foolish, that you were only setting yourself up for more heartbreak, but you couldn't help it. Every time you saw him, every time you heard his voice, your heart skipped a beat. And then one day, you heard a rumor. Bakugo was going to be competing in the school's annual sports festival, and he was considered to be the favorite to win. You tried to ignore the news, but it was all anyone could talk about. Everyone was buzzing with excitement, betting on who would win. and what kind of feats of strength and power would be on display. And then the day of the sports festival arrived. The stadium was packed with students and teachers alike, all eagerly awaiting the start of the competition. As you watched from the stands, your heart pounding with anticipation, you saw Bakugou step onto the field. He was wearing his usual scowl, but there was a fierce determination in his eyes that made your heart skip a beat. You watched as he effortlessly plowed through the competition, his explosions lighting up the sky, and the crowd cheering his name. And then in the final round, he faced off against another student, a boy with blue hair and a kind smile. As the two of them clashed, their powers gliding in a dazzling display of strength and skill, you felt your heart swell with pride. And then, in a split second, everything changed. The other boy landed a powerful blow, knocking Bakugo to the ground and leaving him dazed and confused. As the other boy was declared the winner, he watched in horror as Bakugo stumbled to his feet, his face twisted in anger and frustration. And then, before anyone could stop him, he lashed out. He screamed, he cursed, he raged against anyone and everyone around him. You felt tears stinging your eyes as you watched him, helpless to do anything but watch as he raged on, until finally he collapsed, exhausted and defeated. And so, as you made your way down to the field to offer him your support and comfort, you knew that you were lying to yourself when you said that you had moved on. Because no matter what, your heart would always belong to Bakugou. As you made your way down to the field, he looked up and saw you. His eyes met yours, and for a moment, everything else seemed to fade away. He had always admired you, even if you had been too stubborn to admit it. You were strong, capable, and fiercely independent, and he couldn't help but feel drawn to you. But now, as he looked at you, his heart was pounding in his chest. He realized that his feelings ran much deeper than mere admiration. He watched as you approached him, your eyes filled with concern and compassion, and in that moment, he knew that he was in love with you for sure. As you reached out to him, offering him a hand up, he took it, his fingers brushing against yours in a fleeting moment of contact. As you helped him up to his feet, he looked at you, his heart pounding in his chest. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry for everything I said and did to you. I was stupid, and I hurt you, and I'll never be able to forgive myself for that." You looked at him, your heart aching with sympathy. "It's okay," you said, your voice soft and gentle. "I forgive you." He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what he knew he had to say next. "But there's something I have to tell you," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "I love you. I've loved you for a long time, even if I was too stupid to realize that until now. And I know that I don't deserve you, but I have to tell you anyways." You looked up at him, your heart pounding in your chest. You had always felt drawn to him, even if you had been too hurt to admit it. And now, as he stood there, pouring his heart out to you, you realized your feelings for him ran just as deep. "I love you too," you said. "I always have." And in that moment, everything fell into place. Bakugo took you in his arms, holding you close as the crowd around you cheered and roared. Thank you guys for listening. Hope you liked this video. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Goodbye!